This week on Adventist News Network, the gift of education for Brazilian girls,
Foot washing changes lives in Ethiopia,
and an Adventist chaplain's airport ministry.
These stories and more just ahead.
This is Adventist News Network, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thank you for joining us this week.
First in the news, looking for a holiday gift that always fits and never goes out of style? You can't go wrong by choosing one of the 63 projects in the Adventist Development and Relief Agency's really useful gift catalog. Education for girls in Brazil, shelter for children in Bangladesh, or clean water for families in Cameroon. These are just a few of the choices. 100% of funds donated will go directly toward the project you specify. Add your gift certificates are available to let your friends and family know that you made a contribution in their name. Browse ADRA's really useful gift catalog online at adra.org.
For most Adventists, foot washing symbolizes humility, often during communion service. For a group of Newbold College students, a recent foot washing ceremony was more practical than symbolic. During their mission trip to Ethiopia, Newbold students helped locals suffering from a foot disease called podoconiosis. The disease attacks the lymphatic system and causes painful swelling and disfiguring of the foot and lower leg. It can be prevented through better hygiene and wearing shoes. Students washed and treated feet and handed out new pairs of shoes at a local medical clinic. While in Ethiopia, Newbold students also painted a children's center and stocked a local Adventist school with teaching materials donated by Newbold's college library. This was the third in a series of humanitarian trips to the country organized by the Adventist Churches College in the United Kingdom.
This week, ANN spent a morning with Adventist chaplain Jose Barrientos. Instead of church members in pews, Jose ministers to commuters and employees at one of the busiest international airports in the United States. The young Hispanic pastor is one of 18 assistant chaplains serving at Washington Dulles International Airport. Jose and his fellow chaplains offer Bible studies, prayer, worships, and look for people who need help. While some travelers might ask Jose for directions to their gate, others have just lost loved ones and request spiritual support.
It's fun, it's exciting, I love it. It's something that you don't get paid for, but you have the opportunity to meet people, and at the same time you have the opportunity to share how wonderful it is to love God, how wonderful it is to believe in Him, and how wonderful it is to be able to just bring happiness to the people when you talk about the love of God.
Jose says most passengers are surprised that his job even exists. Many people assume chaplains only support the military, but Adventist chaplains are active in hospitals, schools, prisons, corporations, and airports. There are now chaplains in more than 140 airports worldwide.
More than 600 Adventist women serving in churches and small groups in Honduras were empowered for leadership recently. They attended the church's first Women's Ministries Convention in the Caribbean nation. The convention drew Honduran Minister of Justice and Human Rights Ana Pineda and former Honduras Congresswoman Doris Gutierrez. Gutierrez spoke on the importance of women's participation and leadership in society. Women's Ministries Director for the church in Honduras, Del Howell, says the convention was particularly important for the country. Honduras is challenged by poverty, unemployment, and an increase in violence against women.
A grassroots prayer initiative is sweeping the globe. It's called Operation Global Rain, and it brings Adventists together worldwide to pray jointly for 10 days every January for the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Almost 2,000 churches in 80 countries joined in the first Operation Global Rain, held in 2007. Now, church leaders have voted to make Operation Global Rain an annual event. Joining us here in the studio today is Janet Page. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you.
Janet, you and your husband Jerry first supported this initiative while you were working in the church in California. Tell us what motivated this global prayer event and how it grew over the years.
I believe it started with lay people, church members, wanting to do a 10 days of prayer in their church. And when the pastors saw the blessing it was, one of them, Ivor Myers, came to my husband, Jerry, as the conference president, and said, "You need to make this a conference-wide initiative." And Jerry said, "You make it an initiative." Because we know that things start better, it seems like, from the grassroots. And Ivor took it serious, went and talked to some other pastors, and about 4 young pastors joined him. And they told Jerry, "We're going to make this go around the world." And Jerry, ha, ha, ha. It went viral as they went out on email, went viral across the world. People are hungering for this.
Yes. And can you share with us a story that illustrates what happens when people pray together?
Especially 10 days or longer, miracles. It's just amazing what happens. One woman, she had us praying for her son. He wasn't there. He'd never had anything to do with the church. He was off at a public college. At the end of the 10 days, she came running in and said, my son, he's called me. And he says, God spoke to me and wants me to love him more than I love you, Mom, or my girlfriend, and to read the Bible." It was incredible. And a daughter came running in. When she'd come into the church, her mother had said, "I don't want anything to do. I don't want anything to do with the church." And yet, at the end of that 10 days of us praying for her, the mother called her up. She lives several states away, and called her up, actually in another country, called her up and said, "I want you to know that I'm going to join your church." No contact made, just prayer. But we've seen churches, people healed in the churches, people healed physically, just people reconverted, people converted, people start coming to the churches they don't know why they came, but people were praying.
Now, people are going to want to know how they can join this global initiative.
I would love to tell you how they can join. If they will go to revivalandreformation.org, on there you'll see right away Operation Global Rain. And it'll have on there videos telling about it, but also we have on there theme sheets, resources. Theme sheets, I'm so excited about these. Some people have worked very hard to make up theme sheets, Ivor and some others, to do each night. Mark Finley's written a book for it, 10 Days of Prayer. And the theme sheets, also we have a leader's guide, a prayer guide of how to pray for an hour. I had some of my young people looking at this to see what they thought, and they went, "Wow, we want to start doing this now." Because it's just so good how you can pray for a whole hour together as a group. It's very detailed. It's excellent. You know, some people may want to do it different, but it's great.
Thank you, Janet, so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Up next, remembering a legendary Adventist musician.
Welcome back. This week's Adventist Review pays tribute to a musical visionary. Kimberly Moran previews the issue.
I'm happy to talk to you today about the December 8 cover story on Virginia Jean Rittenhouse titled Her Music Continues. This article was written by Jennifer May Barizo, whose name some of you will recognize as a former columnist for the Adventist Review. Barizo is a young adult living in New York City, and she is an award-winning musician and writer. I was really excited to work with Barizo on this article. I love the lyrical quality of her writing as well as the personality that shines through her words. In this cover story, Barizo writes nostalgically of her experiences with Rittenhouse. The article is partly a tribute with interviews from former students and performers in the New England Youth Ensemble. It is also a winsome snapshot of Rittenhouse and her influence on Barizo. Listen to how Barizo draws the reader in. "I was 15 years old and a woman I did not know was beseeching me to move to another country without my family. She told me that I must join her. She told me that one day I would play in Carnegie Hall." Check out the entire article and other related stories at www.adventistreview.org. It is a touching piece I'm sure you'll enjoy. I also wanted to remind subscribers that we have continued to print humorous and/or profound anecdotes, Adventist quotes, reader photos, and a variety of short items on our Give and Take page. Check out page 13 of the Adventist Review if you want to chuckle or something to think about.
Adventist Review magazine is printed in Hagerstown in the U.S. state of Maryland. The city is also home to a growing community church. Rick Kajara has this report.
In Hagerstown, Maryland, United States, there's a small church plant that they call Faith Step. Several of us from Adventist Mission had an opportunity to go visit there. And when you walk into this house, because it is a former house, you walk in and you feel like you're walking into a home. Because in the back there's a kitchen and they're preparing food for lunch and they meet in the living room. And we met one member there whose name is Dolores, and she was invited there by her eye doctor. And Dolores is a recovering alcoholic, and she told us, "This is like my family. Whenever I'm down, whenever I have a problem, I can call people, and they're there for me." She says, "I don't need to go to my alcoholics meetings now because my family is here for me." We went next door, and upstairs they have a women's shelter, and there's a woman there who's been a drug addict for 33 years. She started when she was 12, and she was living there, and she's studying the Bible. You know, some people might say that this church hasn't grown much in 10 years. But this church is in a community mingling with the people who are in the greatest need. If you want to see this video, you can go to the Adventist Mission website, www.adventistmission.org, and you can see this story and others of people who are touching lives for Jesus.
Now let's hear from Megan Bronner. She has this week's Adventist social media highlights.
This week, our social media friends shared how their churches are telling their communities about Jesus' birth during the holidays. Members of the Everett Adventist Church in Pennsylvania are collecting clothes and toys for needy children in the neighborhood. The Athelton Church in Maryland is sending 1,000 invitations to neighborhoods near their church, inviting them to a special Christmas Eve service, while their youth group is collecting gifts for a nearby homeless shelter. Others said their churches go door to door, inviting people to Christmas services, or host a meal that the whole community is invited to. The results of our latest Facebook poll are in. We asked how you use social media in your worship service, and the majority of you said you tweet your favorite parts of the sermon. Pastors, if you want to know what your members like most about your sermon, you better follow them on Twitter. Check back regularly for more Facebook polls. And also be sure to let us know how you and your church are spreading God's love this Christmas season. We'll be sharing more of your holiday stories next week.
When we come back, our tech tip of the week.
As I read through The Great Hope, there was a phrase that really caught my attention, and it was speaking about Martin Luther, where he relates his own painful experience in vainly seeking by humiliation and penance to secure salvation, and assured his hearers that it was by looking away from himself and believing in Christ that he found peace and joy. And I really believe that so many of us in our lives, we look for that peace and joy, and we think that it's by our own works, or that that we can work for salvation in our own merits. But it's really by looking at Christ's blood that we can then finally find that peace in our hearts. And I think Martin Luther's life is a good reflection of how we all need to come to really look at Jesus and the cross before we can actually have peace in our hearts.
Welcome back. Here's John Beckett with a Skype primer. Everything you need to know about free internet phone service.
Today we're going to talk about some of the many ways you can use Skype. The most basic use of Skype is to send and receive instant text messages. But Skype can be used for a lot more than that. For instance, you can easily chat with multiple people in the same window. This is really great for collaboration. Skype can also be used to voice chat with one person or a whole group of people. I find the audio conference quality of Skype is often better than paid teleconference services. Since the text chat window is available during the audio conference, it's easy to share links and notes with the group. It's also easy to video chat with someone in Skype. However, video chat with more than one person at a time is something that you have to pay for. Skype can also share what's on your computer screen during the video chat. For those of us who travel, Skype offers paid plans that make it possible to dial phone numbers from Skype. This can save quite a bit on phone bills. I've made phone calls using Skype's iPhone application on bad quality hotel Wi-Fi. This brings up another reason I like Skype. It works on almost any network. Skype is available for Mac, PCs, and many kinds of mobile devices.
Many of you have asked for the latest news on the Adventist Church in Hungary, which recently lost its official status. Here's Ganoon Diop with an update.
Dr. John Graz and myself, in the setting of our work in Paarl, went to visit the ambassador of Hungary to the United Nations in the setting of this new law on Hungary. Now, he tried really to make a case, to make it very clear, or he was emphatic actually, that this is not a case of religious discrimination, nor actually is it even a case of religious restriction. In Hungary, there were hundreds of organizations who were trying to actually take advantage, so they think, of the system in having grants or tax exemptions and so forth. But the government took a radical step to deregister churches. Of course, they have kept 14 churches who are now legal in Hungary. And our question to him was, but the Seventh-day Adventist, which is an asset to the Hungarian society, has been there for over 100 years. Why not us? But he said, we can still register. Only the future will tell us if this was really a case of religious freedom or if it is just internal government policy rearrangement.
Stewardship can be a complicated idea for children to grasp. Sostin Mfune shares what he calls the 5 T's of stewardship.
Mary, you are always late for meetings. And when you come in the meetings, you are busy playing on your cell phone. And you crankshaft. You eat anything which you see. And Shaniqua, you don't seem to have the enthusiasm to use what God has given you. And Gearbox, digging everywhere, cutting trees, what's that? And Shasha, you are spending money recklessly. What is this to do with children? Stewardship. Time, tempo, talent, terrain, and treasure. 5 T's of stewardship. This has been our theme when we go for a children's congress, especially as we were in Indonesia and Singapore.
Coming up, months after a devastating earthquake in Japan, relief efforts continue.
Welcome back. Sergio Gonzalez has your iShare report this week. Sergio?
Welcome to iShare, where you bring us the news. Today we have a news story about disaster relief in Thailand, created by iShare reporter Nuntapan Saipan. After recent flooding in Thailand, the Japanese embassy and ADRA worked together to provide household goods to more than 2,000 families. Here's the story.
We would like to ask your feeling, how you feel today that you can come and help people here.
Thank you very much. Very fine for us. As a Japanese government, we are always support to Thai peoples. Today, Japan platform, Adra Japan is under umbrella of the Japan platform. Japan platform, Japanese government supported to them. So we choose today to come here. Okay.
And when you look at the people around here and how they are coming to get the things, how do you feel?
All of the residents looks very fine, very glad for us. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We hope that by helping these people, we can be good friends for each other forever.
Yeah, of course. Thai and Japan are very good friends forever, we think.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Nantapan for your iShare report. And remember, if you have a story you'd like to share, just visit news.adventist.org/iShare.
As the holidays approach, many of us could use a reminder to eat in moderation. Alan Handysides and Peter Landless have some timely advice.
Handysides, what are you doing?
I'm helping the missus. This
Come
is
on.
fruit. This is the fruit for the fruit cake.
Come on, knock it off. Wearing a tie and everything helping
Now
the
listen,
missus.
fruit cake's a very English thing, and a tie is too. So just knock it off.
And fruit cakes are about as nutty as English.
Well, this stuff. I mean, look at it. It's fantastic.
It is,
There's
wow.
raisins. There's beautiful. You know, we even put in some of those sultanas. You know what sultanas are, don't
They
you?
are female sultans.
Yeah, female sultans. And cherries, as you can see, and cranberries to make it a little bit North American. Man, this is fantastic. If you eat this stuff, you get so many good nutrients. So much goodness is in dried fruit. But the problem with it is, it's very, very rich. And you know, some of us English people, we look more like an apple than we do like a pear. And so we've put a little bit of weight on. So over the holidays, enjoy your fruitcake. If you're a traditionalist, enjoy it. But remember smaller portions, please. You know, you can guzzle so much of this that you will balloon. Please don't. Put the balloons up on the Christmas tree and you just enjoy the holidays.
Finally this week, let's hear from Adventist historian David Trim. This week, William Miller gets a publicist and his message catches on.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On December 7, in 1892, Walla Walla College opened in Washington State under the presidency of W.W. Prescott. There were only 1,551 members in the North Pacific region at the time, but they had raised over $53,000, an astonishing sum by the standards of the day, to build the college which today is Walla Walla University. On December 8, in 1839, William Miller began a series of lectures in Chardon Street Chapel in Boston. For more than 8 years previously, he had spoken in small towns and villages in northern New England. Miller was a good preacher, but not a good publicist. In 1839, Joshua Himes invited Miller to speak at the chapel he pastored in Boston, and Himes turned out to be a brilliant publicist. He promoted Miller's lectures heavily, and the result was that thereafter Millerism began to spread in the cities as well as the country. That process began this week in 1839. But one more event from this week in our history. On December 9, 1945, officers of the Allegheny Conference bought the land on which, in September 1946, Pine Forge Institute was to open. Pine Forge was the first black Adventist boarding academy. Thanks to God's leading, the church was able to buy the historic Rutter Estate, which, appropriately, had once been an important stop on the Underground Railroad. Some of the Institute's buildings are listed on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. And that was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching Adventist News Network. Join us again next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And if you haven't already done so, check out our app. You can now watch ANN videos on your iPhone or Android device, as well as access all the latest news, commentaries, and photos.
As always, you can visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next week, God bless.